be seated. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Could I ask you all, please remember to turn off your mobile phones and... Where are we? Turn off your mobile phones. Announcements. We have one announcement, and it's a sad announcement. I was horrified and saddened to hear of the terrorist attack in Manchester on Monday evening. On behalf of everyone in Leeds, I would like to express our heartfelt support and sympathy to the people of Manchester. We offer our condolences to everyone who has been affected by this awful situation, and this also includes victims and their families from Leeds, as well as paying tribute to the work of the emergency and public services responding to it. As a northern city like Manchester, we pride ourselves on welcoming and celebrating diversity, and today we stand together with them in solidarity. Leeds will continue to work closely with as many people and organisations from Manchester, as well as forging ever stronger alliances in the face of adversity. Together, today, we stand together in solidarity with the people of Manchester, and I would ask that you all join me in a minute's silence to show our support and love to those affected. Thank you all. Can I confirm, following the dispatch of the summons with accompanying reports on Wednesday 17th of May 2017, further papers originally identified on the summons as to follow were circulated to members on the 24th of May 2017. Can we go to item 1? The election of the Lord Mayor. Councillor Judith Blake.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I would just like to start by paying tribute to you, Lord Mayor, for the way that you conducted the minute silence in the city this morning. It's great credit to all of us as members, and I know many people were very much comforted by your speech this morning. It is my very great privilege to move that Councillor Jane Dowson be elected Lord Mayor of our great city. I think all of us know that with Jane we're going to be in for a very exciting year ahead. Jane has always been something of a whirlwind, and we all certainly know when Jane is around, and all her ideas and enthusiasm for working in a patch is something that inspires us all. I'm particularly delighted as well to welcome Alan Bellhouse, Jane's husband, as her consort to the Chamber. He's going to be such a great ambassador for us all, and we're looking forward to a very exciting year ahead. So I think the words that come to mind: whirlwind, exciting, passionate. And how many of you saw Jane fully taking part in the carnival procession through her beloved Chapel Allerton, and how fitting, how absolutely brilliant that this year is the 50th anniversary of the oldest carnival in Europe, and that we will have Jane Dowson as our Lord Mayor to help us move the celebrations forward. So it's very interesting to me because I mentioned last year with Councillor Harper the connection when I first met him was Prince Henry's grammar school in Otley, and of course Jane herself was a pupil at Prince Henry's in Otley. And I think the threads that Jane and I have picked up over the years go back to that, that really sense of Jane being rooted in her community. And I think, we know that she's taken all of the experience of growing up in Poole and living in Otley to her role as an elected member. I'm very pleased to welcome her family here tonight, and I'm sure they're aware of Jane's contribution to the City of Leeds, but I hope by the end of this evening everyone will be aware of the fantastic contribution that Jane makes. I just want to make reference to the closest way that I've worked with Jane over our times together as being elected members. And that's the time when I was the executive member for children and families. And Jane took on with relish an incredibly difficult role of being the deputy executive member with responsibility for education. We are going to miss Jane enormously in that role. I cannot describe to you what a rock she was to me as the executive member, but her contribution to the city as a whole, in her many, many roles, going around the city, sitting on so many committees and different meetings, really being a proud ambassador for children and young people in our city. And I think it's because of Jane's enthusiasm that we were able to really get out into schools, talking to young people themselves, listening to what they had to say to us, that we've managed to get the child-friendly Leeds model off to such a brilliant start. It's hard to think that we're heading towards the 5th anniversary of the Queen coming to Leeds, and many of us have very precious memories of that time, and Jane was absolutely at the heart of all the success that we brought to the table. So she's well known in that role, and I know in her role as Lord Mayor that going out to visit schools, as so many Lord Mayors have done, will be an extraordinary passion for her, and I think we can look forward to many successes going forward. Now, the thing that some of you might not know is that Jane is also a fierce contributor to the quiz scene of Leeds, and I've managed to avoid being in an opposite team to her, but I'm not sure if she'll have time to keep that habit going. But also, I do need to warn you that she does have a habit of bursting into song as well. So I think we can expect some very interesting moments going forward. So, Lord Mayor, it is with great pleasure that I recommend to you all that we accept Councillor Dowson as our next Lord Mayor. Such a passionate contributor. She is going to be, with Alan at her side, an extraordinary ambassador for children and young people, but for all of our communities in our great city. And I'm looking forward to her year in office with great excitement and enthusiasm. Thank you.
Councillor Alan Lamb.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a pleasure to second Councillor Dowson to be the Lord Mayor of Leeds. Before I make my remarks, if I can just, on behalf of the Conservative Group, thank you for what you did at lunchtime today, and also the way you led the tribute just now and the minute's silence. It's been a terrible week for everybody, but the best thing we can all do now is to come here and do our job of getting on with democracy and keep going on. But thank you for what you did, Lord Mayor. And if I can also congratulate you on your year of office, a particular highlight for me was cooking Christmas dinner for you in Wetherby, and you did a great job serving some of our old folks as well. It's the first time I've known the Lord Mayor come to that event, so it's great to have you there. So thank you very much. Turning to Councillor Dowson, it's a slightly uncomfortable position I find myself in because, as many of you will know, I've spent the last 10 years, most of it, shadowing a combination of Councillor Blake and Councillor Dowson. And now I have to find myself agreeing with Councillor Blake and being nice about Councillor Dowson, which are not things that I'm terribly accustomed to, but I will do my best. So I try to think of some of the things that Councillor Dowson and I have in common. Number one is a shared love of cake, which will come as a surprise to many. Number two, which might be even more surprising, is a shared love of singing and music. And at some point, if there's a high enough bid at some point during the year for her charity, whatever that may be, I'll be happy to duet with her at some stage. And if the bid's even higher, I'll stop. And the third thing that I know we have in common is our shared passion for improving outcomes for children and young people. And it's always interesting when you get to know someone. And for most of my time, Councillor Dowson sat over there, and whenever it's strange not to have her looking disapprovingly at me from over there. And she's got a wicked sense of humour, is what I've learnt in the many hours we spent interviewing for various roles and doing all sorts of things on the council. And there are various councillors who shall remain nameless, but I'm sure it won't take you long to figure it out. Whenever they're on their feet to speak, there's a wicked look from Councillor Dowson to me, and it's almost impossible not to crack up. And she shares that kind of thing all of the time. But when you get to know somebody, particularly when it's an opponent, and you spend a lot of time, and particularly in this of all weeks, you remind yourself that we have a great many shared objectives. We frequently disagree on how to achieve them, but that's our job, and that's how it should be. But you get to know that what's truly in someone's heart, and in Councillor Dowson's case, is her absolute passion and commitment for children and young people in this city. And it's been a privilege to play a small part in working alongside her and Councillor Blake and all of their executive members in trying to make Leeds a child-friendly city. And we cannot possibly have a better ambassador as Lord Mayor this year for our children and young people. I was talking to some of her ward colleagues, and so if this story is in any way inappropriate, it's their fault, not mine. Some of you will know about 18 months ago that Councillor Dowson broke her arm quite badly, which was very sad. I knew it was bad because in one particular scrutiny meeting, she had to leave, and I came out to see how she was, and thought that's not the character. If she's had to step out of a meeting, you know it's bad. But the circumstances to which the broken arm came about were somewhat amusing. And I don't know if many of you know the story that she was doing. I'm not sure, Councillor Rafiq wasn't sure it was a 10k or a half marathon in a typical way to raise money with a great deal of enthusiasm. And her family and grandchildren live in, I think it's Northampton. Yeah. And so to keep up with her training, she went to the gym in Northampton. And if you can picture the scene of Councillor Dowson on the treadmill, my vision was something between a Victoria Wood sketch and the Green Goddess. And she was working away on the treadmill, which happened to be next to the fire exit, which was open. And somehow she managed to stumble and fall off and out of the fire exit and onto the stairs and break her arm. Thankfully, it wasn't much worse than it was, but I'm blaming Councillor Rafiq for that story. So, Lord Mayor, in conclusion, I'm sure, I don't know Alan, but I'm sure if you're alongside Jane, you're going to be a magnificent consort and you're going to have a fantastic year. And it's an absolute pleasure on behalf of the Conservative group to second the motion that Councillor Jane Dowson should be Lord Mayor of our great city of Leeds. Thank you.
Councillor Stuart Galton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Jane Dowson is somebody that I have been familiar with for over a decade. It's all right, it's not confession time. For over a decade now. I didn't think I was going to blush during the speech, but there you go. Actually, we have been quite close in warm surroundings, but I would be referring to the town hall during classical concerts, where we often make sure we're on the front row, because I've got bad eyesight and she just likes to be seen flapping her fan very grandly. But it's during occasions like that that you get to know your colleagues from the other benches and appreciate them as human beings, so that when, as Councillor Lamb pointed out, they are looking at you glaringly from the other side of the chamber, you know that they're doing it with love. What we do know, though, is that Jane is such a formidable character that those disapproving looks that you have encountered previously will not be something that you won't be getting again. It's just that they won't be politically motivated. They will be about your behaviour. You know what you're talking about. And I look forward to that, because Jane is a formidable character blessed with good moral sense. And that is what propelled her through children's services to champion those children in education. And to champion children now in the charity that she's chosen, which is, of course, Candlelighters. And actually, I look forward to some pretty substantial chamber debates where Councillor Dowson is stamping her authority. What I will say as well is, culturally, we know that Councillor Dowson actually comes from Poole, which is one of the sleepier parts of Greater Leeds. But one of the great things about Jane is she exemplifies the ability for Leeds that no matter whether you come from one of the leafier bits or one of the inner city bits, we can all enjoy that great cultural offer that there is in the city. And she stopped being a country mouse and certainly took on the bright lights and big city and enjoys all the culture that we have, and the classical concerts were an example of that. And I look forward to her continued championship of the arts as we go further forward towards that capital of culture. Lord Mayor, it just leaves me to say, on that cultural aspect, I sing as well in the shower. Just to let you know, Councillor Lamb. So I'm going to up you. I'm going to up you your duet with Councillor Dowson, and I'm going to go for an all-party chorus. Because one of the things that's very important, of course, during a Lord Mayoral year is there are opportunities for us to take the mickey out of ourselves to raise money for a very well-deserving charity that the Lord Mayor will be leading and hoping that the rest of the city takes on board as well. So I look forward to working with you, Councillor Lamb, but most of all, of course, look forward to a year led by the first citizen of the city, being Jane Dowson. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Judith Elliott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It is my pleasure, on behalf of the Morleyper Independents, to support the nomination of Councillor Jane Dowson to be elected the Lord Mayor of Leeds for the coming year. Jane shows a compassion for a fellow man in whatever role she is given. The office of Lord Mayor will offer her the opportunity to meet our Leeds citizens from all walks of life, and her sense of community will show through. With Alan by her side, the two of them will work together and prove to be wonderful ambassadors for Leeds, our vibrant, diverse and inclusive city. We hope that Jane has a wonderful and successful year, of which she is very deserving. Thank you.
Councillor Terry Wilford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On behalf of the Green Group, I would like to welcome Councillor Jane Dowson as Lord Mayor of the City of Leeds. Jane has a proven track record for a commitment towards making Leeds a child-friendly city. Due to her many roles as an executive member... Sorry, can we start again? On behalf of the Green Group, I would like to welcome Councillor Jane Dawson as the Lord Mayor of the City of Leeds. Jane has a proven track record for a commitment towards making Leeds a child-friendly city, predominantly in her roles as Executive Member for Education and as Deputy Executive for Children and Families. We are in safe hands. Jane supports the City of Leeds' bid to become the 2023 European City of Culture, and this can be mirrored in a cultural interest, for instance as a supporter of the Leeds Grand Theatre, City Varieties and West Yorkshire Playhouse. From what I read, Jane enjoys folk music and can on occasion be found entertaining the public with her singing. So along with my colleagues, we are singing out your praises as Lord Mayor, and we wish you and your partner Alan every success and enjoy your year in office. Thank you.
Thank you all. Shall we now put the motion to the vote? All those in favour? Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. We now call for a brief adjournment. Thank you.
We'll now conduct the declaration of acceptance of office.
I, Jane Dowson, having been elected to the office of Lord Mayor, hereby declare that I will take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability. Right, if you'd all like to sit down, please. Right, we move straight on to the election of Vice Chair of Council, Councillor Ogilvie.
Of the Council and to hold office until immediately after the election of the Lord Mayor at the annual meeting of Council in 2018.
Thank you. Councillor Harland?
I second Lord Mayor.
Right, we'd like to call for the vote for the appointment of Vice Chair of Council. For, against and abstention. So if I can call for 4, please. Against. Any abstentions? Therefore, I declare Councillor McKenna Vice Chair of Council. Right, it's up to me with my fan, minus my singing voice, because I have got cold. And there is some cake later, Councillor Lamb, so be pleased to hear that. But first, I'm really pleased to welcome both my family and Alan's family into the chamber. I'll be telling you later about my 4 grandchildren, but I'd just like to make an announcement of my own, if that's all right, because we have another grandma in the chamber today. I'd just like to tell you that Councillor Blake, who started off late, now has 4 grandchildren of her own. She's had 1 today, so 1 more grandchild today. I think she'll probably want to rush away after council to enjoy with her family that experience. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this really warm afternoon here in Civic Hall. Councillor Harper has passed the baton brilliantly, and I thank him for that, but at the most difficult and tragic of times. We now know that children, parents and grandparents from our city have been killed or injured in the Manchester terrorist attack. I wanted to start today not only as Lord Mayor of Leeds, but as a mum and a grandma, to pass my own condolences to those affected. My thoughts and prayers are with all those killed, injured and traumatised by this terrible act. As a city, I know we will do all we can to support Manchester. Now, I feel honoured and humbled to have been elected as the 124th Lord Mayor of Leeds. And I wanted to start by paying my own tribute to Councillor Harper, Jerry and his Lady Mayoress Lynn, who looks stunning this evening. I think they've been absolutely fantastic. Please do. I know they've had a very busy year. They've attended hundreds of events, staying much longer than expected and often taking part in the festivities. I've seen him singing and dancing all over the city, in person, but also on Facebook and Twitter. Modern technology. In my own ward, we've seen him sing Christmas carols with the children from Holy Rosary Primary School at a community event at the Islamic Centre. At our community committee event, he eagerly volunteered to join Councillor Taylor and me, learning and performing a Bollywood dance routine on stage with the professionals. In his case, very well. And Eileen, you weren't too bad either. He's also worked tirelessly throughout his year to raise funds for Epilepsy Action and Heart Research UK. These 2 great causes so very close to Jerry's heart. And a particular highlight for me was very recently we had the Leeds We Are United event, bringing communities together to share food and enjoy entertainment from around the world, performed by cultural organisations based here in Leeds. He really has done the city proud. Thank you, Jerry. However, I think you will all agree with me that he has let us down very badly in one particular promise. Some of you will remember, Jerry, what happened to Leeds United? You promised us the luck of the Irish would propel us into the Premiership. What did happen? Supporters have waited years for a return to top-flight football, and we absolutely believed that you would lead the charge. So, Councillor Harper, unfortunately, it's now up to me to invoke the luck of the Loiners. And if Andrea Radrizani wants me to go down from time to time to give a stirring and stern team talk, then I shall be only too happy to do so. Now, I know you're a super fan, and as someone who knows a little bit about football and has a bit of extra time on his hands now, I do understand that currently they are looking for a new manager. Yeah. So there we go, new job.
Well, need a job.
I was elected as a councillor in 2004 with my ward colleague, Councillor Rafiq, and Councillor Taylor joined the team a few years later. Now, I believe we represent the most diverse population in the city, and I think in the country outside London. Representing such a vibrant ward is exciting, it's frustrating, it's heartbreaking, and it's wonderfully joyous in equal measures. And believe me, it's the best job in the world. Being a councillor is not an easy job, and it's so easy that it's not easy. And it's often the small victories that give you the most satisfaction, being able to help individuals as well as progressing larger schemes. As ward colleagues and a close team, Eileen Mohammed and I have many adventures. But one particular I'd like to tell you does stand out, and it involves my ward colleague, Councillor Taylor. Eileen and I agreed to join Arthur France's carnival troupe one year. And I think we all know Arthur in the room. We were measured up for what Arthur told me would be a demure costume befitting the older woman. Then I proceeded to go on holiday, agreeing to pick up the costume at the carnival on the day. Needless to say, when I put it on, it was not the demure costume I was promised, but a most revealing garment. Arthur howled with laughter as only he can, and we joined in the hilarity. And I can assure you I've only just managed to keep those photos out of the public domain. What I discovered back in 2004 in this chamber was a wonderful cabal of fantastic and fierce women politicians of all parties. Women who absolutely called a spade a shovel, and who, quite frankly, at the beginning scared the wits out of me. Many of you will only know the names, but others will have known them well as friends and as colleagues. Women like Marion Monks, Christiana Myers, Lorna Cohen, Denise Atkinson, Eileen Moxon, Linda Middleton, and we could go on, couldn't we? I remember Denise insisting on coming into the council chamber on several occasions to vote despite being seriously ill. I can still imagine her sitting in her upholstered chair just over there at the back of the room, near the stairs, and the Lord Mayor shouting over, Councillor Atkinson, how would you like to vote? But we all knew how she wanted to vote. And I'll never forget Eileen Moxon leaping to her feet when Councillor Carter made the error of talking about firemen. Fire people, she shouted in her thick Belfast accent. In her own special way, a champion for equality and always generous in her support of other women. And the legend. Did she back into your car, Councillor? I'm so sorry. And the legend that was Susie Armitage. I think we all remember Susie very fondly and despite several bouts of cancer, she always came out fighting, never giving up. What a wonderful woman, wonderful people, wonderful inspiring women, and real role models for an impressionable new councillor. It's probably where I got the stern looks from. I sometimes wonder what the new councillors here will think of us one day. Now, it was Councillor... I hope that's minuted because I didn't hear that one. Now, it was Councillor Wakefield, the leader back then, who noticed that education was a real interest of mine, leading to over 6 years in the Children's Services Directorate, working first with Councillor Blake, then Councillor Eden, and now Councillor Mulherron, never thinking that one day it would lead to this. We have some fantastic young people in Leeds, and the ambitions of the city serve them well. The best city in the UK, the European Capital of Culture 2023, and a child-friendly city, to name but a few. Throughout October and November last year, over 10,000 votes were cast for the Children's Mayor of Leeds, 16-17. The result of the vote was revealed during the finals night on the 8th of November. The winner, Grace, from Driglington Primary School, receiving the most votes and becoming the 12th Children's Mayor of Leeds. I really look forward to working with Grace and whoever the 13th Children's Mayor will be at the start of their term this November. Because of my association with Children's Services, I decided that I would choose a children's charity as the Lord Mayor's charity this year. It was very difficult to choose my charity, as there are so many in Leeds who make a real difference to the lives of children and young people and their families in our city. I knew I wanted to help a smaller charity, and Candlelighters came instantly to mind. For those of you who don't know about Candlelighters, Candlelighters is a local Leeds-based charity founded in 1976 to care for the well-being of children, young people and their families who live in the Yorkshire area, diagnosed with cancer, leukemia and central nervous system tumours, their treatment often bringing them across the road, just over there, to Leeds Children's Hospital. The support doesn't end when the child's treatment does, or if a family sadly loses their child. It continues for as long as the family needs them, in many different ways, whatever is needed, whenever it is needed. On the wards of Leeds Children's Hospital, they fund 665 hours of various hospital roles every week, including play leaders, advanced nurse practitioners, social workers and family support workers, as well as purchasing IT equipment, toys and other little extra comforts. On top of this, each year Candlelighters ploughs hundreds of thousands of pounds into the research and study of children's cancer, something that they and we are very proud of. There is no time limit on coming to terms with the extraordinary journeys and experiences that families face. Neither is there a time limit on grief. Candlelighters support families for life. Now that brings me to the cottage. During a child's stay in hospital, it is essential that they can have their family by their side. Let's face it, being in hospital can be a traumatic and scary experience for any one of us. But for a child, having their loved ones there to comfort them and to add a sense of normality to their lives is invaluable, especially at a time when it can feel everything around them is falling apart. The extra accommodation that the Candlelighters cottage will give enables children with cancer staying in hospital the chance to have both mum and dad there, as well as their brothers and sisters. Now, this is the challenge. £500,000. That's what's needed from voluntary contributions. And by starting to raise the money now, they'll be able to commence the building works on the cottage and aim to open its doors in early 2018. The cottage is based near the Swarthmore Centre, right next door to the Children's Hospital, a perfect location for families to be able to stay somewhere where they can take respite before going back to see their children. Now, I hope this is something the whole city can get behind. It's a project that has a time limit, and it's something we can all work towards and see the benefits. What I haven't done yet is tell you much about my fantastic family. I think as councillors we all rely on the understanding and support of our partners and families. The late nights, the weekends, the full days. It's definitely not 9 to 5. Now, my dad was a miner in his younger days up in Bishop Auckland. He then met Mum, moved to Leeds, and the rest, they say, was history. I often think of Dad, but he died when I was a child. So long ago now, I have to look at photos to remember what he actually looked like. Mum was a stay-at-home mum, but after Dad died, took on several cleaning jobs to keep a roof over our heads. This is why I left school at 16, starting work to contribute to the family budget. It's from them I get my work ethic. I'm absolutely certain when I was born into this very working class family, Mum and Dad had no ambitions for me to actually leave the village, let alone become Lord Mayor of this great city. It's also why, given the opportunity in my 40s, I took the chance to do a higher diploma and then a management degree at Leeds Beckett University, and then a little later, a PGC, believe it or not, in local government modernisation. Finally getting the education I missed when I was younger. I remember Jerry talking last year about his mum. And how proud he was of her. And how proud she was of him. Now, my mum, Eva, was also a very special woman. And just like Jerry's, she was so very proud of me. And she was often heard introducing me as her daughter, the Leeds City Councillor. Some of you did know her because I did try to bring her to functions, and I remember fondly her coming to the Freedom of City event for Alan Bennett. She spent the entire evening, not with me, but sitting with Councillor Blackburn's mum, as they compared walking sticks and pills. I was lucky enough to talk to Alan Bennett. He was fascinated by these two old ladies and did say he would make a note. Who knows? The two of them may well be featured in a future play. She never gave up on life, although I know on many occasions it may have been an easy option. She had so much get up and go, and if life did get overwhelming, she never let us know. She was still going to the Rhinos games with my daughter in her 70s. She drove a motorbike until she was in her 80s, revelling in the nickname Eva Knievel. She caught the bus into Leeds to meet her friend and play bingo into her 90s. And when she was diagnosed with dementia, she still wanted an electric scooter, which I can assure you she did not get, as we fear she would set off and never remember how to get home. She was kind and she was loving, and I miss her every single day. Now, I consider I've been lucky in life. I'm a sort of glass half full kind of person, that's me. And I got this optimism from Mum. Now, I have two wonderful children, Alison and David. They're here today with their partners, and I have 4 beautiful grandchildren, just keeping up with Councillor Blake there. Holly, kind and gentle. Nick, a footballer with development papers, sorry Jerry, for Northampton Town, but who thinks he would really like to be a sports journalist. Charlotte, the little star, who can't go past a mirror without wanting to perform a song or a dance. And little Luna, who can hear in the background, who normally is the calmest, tenderest, mildest and sweetest baby, which I'm sure she'll show you later. And I love them all dearly. They're all very tolerant and find great amusement in their crazy grandma who revels in open water swimming and taking on challenges. I hope they all inherit the very best from my mum, and if they do, they won't go far wrong. And I hope they're very proud of me too. Now that brings me to my consort, Alan, my husband. What can I say? All of you will know that being a husband of a politician is not easy. Routine doesn't exist, the phone never stops, and you're on your computer or iPad all the time. No 2 weeks are the same. He handles it all with a smile and a joke. There's a shoulder if I need one, and now retired, more importantly, he always has my tea ready, whatever time I get home. He's taught me so much about history and classical music, which I now love and enjoy. And he loves art too. But organisation isn't necessarily one of these strong points, and I will tell you a story about today, perhaps later at dinner. He took me on a long weekend to Amsterdam to see one of his favourite paintings, The Death of Icarus by Bruegel. And we turned up and looked at the wall, only to find that it was on loan to Brussels. Whoops. I know he'll be a wonderful support. And so finally, I promise you this, that I will do my very best over the next 12 months to represent Leeds well, to promote business, enterprise and arts in the city, so that our aim of becoming a compassionate city with a strong economy and the best city in the UK becomes a little closer. Thank you. And I'd now like to call on Councillor Blake to thank the retiring Lord Mayor. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The first time I've said that to you, Councillor Dowson. I just, before I talk about Councillor Harper, I just want to echo everything you've said about your mum, Eva, an absolute stalwart in the Labour Party out in our neck of the woods, and everything you've said, absolutely true, and I know she will be smiling down on you and very, very proud of everything that you have achieved. And it's very interesting to me. I think, I was just saying to Mark, you know, at least he knows all the back roads out to Otley, as having driven Councillor Harper and Lynn around, and it's a strange coincidence that, you know, that knowledge will come into use next year. But I hope you will all, and I know you will all, join with me in extending the warmest vote of thanks to Jerry and to Lynn for their extraordinary year in office that they've had. So many successes to reflect on, but great ambassadors for the city. You really have done us proud. I have to say, you did come to Middleton Park and you came to our produce show, and we were told by the Lord Mayor's office that you really strictly would only have 15 minutes to be with us. Well, 3 hours later, having taken part in all of the, the fastest duck race and all of the different events that took place, we, the three of us as Middleton Park members, saw such a great side to you and the enthusiasm that you brought to the role, and it meant a huge amount to the people who put so much time and effort into organising the great events. Now, I've asked for a little bit of an update of some of the other things you've done, and you managed to officiate at Pudsey Carnival twice. I can only assume that's a quirk of dates that happened, but such is your commitment to all parts of the city. But if you actually look back over the last year, what an extraordinary year you have taken part in and led us so brilliantly. And you think back to the celebrations of the Battle of the Somme last year, which seems such a long time ago. But you, I remember, left a council meeting and straight on to go over to France to lay the wreath, travelling through the night. And so many events celebrating our armed forces in such an extraordinary year, of reflection back to the First World War. And then the celebration of the Rio Olympians coming to Leeds, and the extraordinary journey of so many of our Olympians who came through the streets of Leeds in the open buses. And then opening Victoria Gate and the casino, taking part in the Holocaust Memorial Day, and then a civic visit to Ziegen to celebrate our 50th anniversary with that great city. I have to say, probably one of the most moving events that you organised was the Leeds We Are United event. And I know some of you managed to get to that event, but the extraordinary effort that Jerry and Lynn put in to organising that, and such a reflection of our diverse communities, fabulous displays of talent from young people from right across the city of Leeds, and such a poignant memory for us at this particular time. But I have to say, Jerry, don't give up the day job. I think your singing career might be slightly limited. That's a bit of an in-joke for those of us there, but Je suis rock star councillor Jerry Harper took the town hall by storm and entertained us all absolutely brilliantly. So I, obviously reflected on what I said when I proposed Councillor Harper to become Lord Mayor. And, Jerry and I go back a long way in our suffering as lifelong Leeds United supporters. And, I think I helped to put the challenge in that, this was his opportunity to give the confidence to the team to really pull out the stops. Well, when I look at my speech, I have to say that was met by laughter. But do you know what? Didn't they nearly go and do it? And can't we be very proud of Leeds United's performance over the last year? And I know Jane will pick up the mantle, and I'm sure we'll even go to the matches as well, so that next year we'll be standing here celebrating Leeds United on the verge of going up into the Premiership. So, again, I just want to reflect in saying thank you to Jerry for the extraordinary year he's had. A great friend to this city, and he's done us all proud. And do you know what? He's even managed to keep us in order at council meetings throughout the year, for which we can all be duly proud. Thank you.
Councillor Proctor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm delighted to be able to second this vote of thanks to the retiring Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress, Jerry and Lynn. I'm conscious, Lord Mayor, that Councillors Galton, Gettings, Blackburn and I, the principal thing that stand between you and all of your guests enjoying what smells like a fantastic curry that keeps wafting through the doors at the side. So I, for one, will keep my remarks brief. I hope Councillors Galton's, Gettings and Blackburn will do the same, so we can enjoy the food and stop being tempted by it. Jerry, you've had an incredible year, a very active year. The problem with going second in the vote of thanks is the office, the Lord Mayor's office, provides the same briefing note, it would seem, to all of those who are speaking. So I won't repeat some of the fantastic achievements that Judith's already mentioned. But what I do know is that you've raised a substantial sum of money for your two charities, Epilepsy Action, which I know is incredibly close to your heart and important in the work that they do, and also Heart Research UK, which I know a considerable amount about, having served on as a trustee of that organisation for a number of years myself, and it's great that their pioneering work that helps so many people, not just in this region but actually nationally, is going to benefit from your activities and the fundraising that's occurred over the course of this year. Jerry, you're my 26th Lord Mayor since being a member of this council, and I have to say, I think you're probably the most grounded Lord Mayor that we've possibly ever had. Those of my colleagues here who have been former chief whips of their respective political groups tend to work more closely with the Lord Mayor than many other members of council. Normally at a certain point in time, in a Lord Mayor's, I was going to say reign, term of office, they literally do think they are reigning, and it does somewhat go to the head. Whether that's because of the chauffeur-driven limousine, or being announced everywhere that you go with the customary cry of Lord Mayor. Who knows? But it certainly hasn't gone to your head. What I will say to you, though, is you've just got to remember that if you see a grey car parked along a curb, it's no use waiting on the pavement. No one's going to open the door for you, and whatever you do, don't climb in the back of it because it won't whisk you. Away. What hasn't been mentioned this evening, and what I do know, and what many colleagues perhaps don't know, is that whilst you've been Lord Mayor, you've also very quietly taken on another very important role, and that is to chair the Hyde Park Picture House subcommittee of the Grand Theatre board, that is. I served on that board for a number of years, as have a number of colleagues. In all of the time that you've been a member of that board, you've had a very clear focus, something that you wanted to achieve for a community you represent, but actually for the whole of the city, and that was is the refurbishment of the Hyde Park Picture House. Some of us thought perhaps it was a task so steep that it'd never be achieved, and some of the sums of money that were quoted seemed frightening, frankly. Nevertheless, with a steady hand, you've guided through this particular project, a £3.6 million redevelopment project, and quite incredibly, somehow, don't know how you did it, managed to get £2.4 million of Heritage Lottery grant funding. And those who know anything about getting money out of the Heritage Lottery know that that is an absolute incredible feat. And I have to say, that's down to you, Jerry, in terms of bringing that about. So you should be rightly proud of that great achievement. And I look forward to hopefully being invited to the reopening after refurbishment when the project is finally completed. Jerry, Lynn, you've had a fabulous year. You've represented our city with honour. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Galton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Harper has been one of the best Lord Mayors we've had in the time that I've been a councillor here at the Civic Hall. It's an office which, although we joke about it and we talk about people getting a little bit grand, has a huge responsibility, because it's not just about how they behave here in the chamber, which is very important to us because we want to get our points across and we want to be treated fairly. But out there in that wider city, there are going to be hundreds of thousands of opinions of that person who is representing something which is very dear to every one of those citizens. And what a huge responsibility that is, and it could really outface the best of us. I have to say that Jerry and Lynn, who are very much a partnership, and you feel that when you meet them, whether it's at a community event or whether it's something else more substantial, they have represented the city superbly, because you do so by representing dignity, but also warmth, and also being appropriate to the occasion that you're at. So when they came to Rothwell and they came to our May Day celebrations, Jerry was almost a father to the children that had been dancing around the maypole, wanted to join in himself. And then when you get something really very important, like the vigil that was mentioned earlier, particularly at the parish church where I attended, what's needed there is something entirely different, but was very much within the skill set of Jerry and Lynn. And it's something which is very hard to achieve because you only have 12 months to do it in, and it's a very, very quick learning process from the very beginning. What I will say is also that Jerry, as Lord Mayor, as previous Lord Mayors have done in the past, but I think particularly this year, has been able to leave a legacy that further Lord Mayors can then benefit from. So the We Are United event is something which I think has real value in times like these where our democracy is being challenged, and they don't want party political politicians leading the charge against that, and that's where somebody who is above party can actually bring real leadership to the city. And I look forward to Councillor Dowson enjoying that legacy that Councillor Harper has left you in terms of building that central cohesive element that the Lord Mayoralty can deliver for the city. And of course, the other legacy that you leave, of course, is every year there's a charity. I have to say I have a particular interest because I'm on that charity committee, and we do try and get as many of our members involved as well as the outside world. Councillor Harper has been very effective at doing that. He's drawn in people who offered, for instance, we had some raffle prizes that were cruises, world cruises and flights to Las Vegas. And it's quite hard to make that ask because a lot of people feel very compromised. Don't, Councillor Dowson. Please take tips from Councillor Harper as to how it's done. And all I can say is I've been very proud to serve in your charity committee this year, and I'm hoping that you look forward to your holiday, which is going to happen very soon, and it's well deserved.
Councillor Gettings.
Lord Mayor, I'm absolutely delighted to support the vote of thanks to the retiring Lord Mayor. Being Mayor of Morley this year, our paths crossed several times, and at the Leeds Pals Memorial at Colsterdale, he led the city's commemoration marking the 100th anniversary of the Battle of the Somme, where on the first morning when the Leeds Pals went over the top, 800 of them were killed. Our Lord Mayor represented the city on that occasion with great dignity. But also on that day, he spent time with the 91-year-old war veteran and invited him on some future day to join him in the Mayor's Parlour for afternoon tea. His warm, people-friendly personality shone through for all to see. In our partner city of Seagon, he joined the Lord Mayors of other European cities at the opening of the new waterfront in Seagon. This marked the 50th anniversary of the Morley-Leeds Civic Leeds twinning, and his sincere words of greeting from our city and his jovial personality helped cement further our partnership. But fortunately, this meeting was before Brexit. As a member of his charity committee, I've seen his commitment, his hard work, his enthusiasm and determination to raise money for his chosen charity, which we all know is very close to his heart. But one of the climaxes of his year must have been when he helped the city celebrate St George's Day in Morley. And he, with the Lady Mayoress, together with Dr Ingrid Roscoe, the Lord Lieutenant, took the salute to Morley Town Hall steps, where 1,200 scouts, guides and cadets paraded where he took the salute. Councillor Harper has had, and his Lady Mayoress have had a fantastic year and have served our city well. And our MBI group wished to congratulate him on a job well done.
Councillor Anne Blackburn.
Thank you. Lord Mayor, I must start by congratulating yourself and your partner Alan on becoming Lord Mayor of this great city of ours. And I am sure that you will be excellent in the role. It is my pleasure to support a vote of thanks for the retiring Lord Mayor on behalf of the Green Group. Jerry has chaired the council meetings well and has been very even-handed with the threat of turning the microphone off. when councillors go over their time in speaking. As we all know, sometimes council meetings can get a bit lively, but Jerry has really done a fantastic job of chairing. And I understand that Jerry has attended over 400 civic engagements this year, and also that he has raised a substantial amount of money for his chosen charities, Epilepsy Action and Heart Research UK. But not content with that, Jerry went the extra half mile, and through the money raised supported 3 specialist awareness training events that have been attended by over 100 council staff. As far as I know, it is the first time that one of our Lord Mayors has done that. So, nice one, Jerry. I think that Jerry and Lynn now deserve a well-earned rest after all the work they have done as ambassadors for this great city of ours, and the Green Group wish them well and wish them all our good wishes for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call for the vote in respect of the vote of thanks to the retiring Lord Mayor. For, against, abstentions. The vote of thanks is carried. Right, I'm now going to present the Lord Mayor's badge to the retiring Lord Mayor, Councillor Harper. The retiring Lady Mayoress. Is now going to present the Lord Mayor's consort with his insignia of office, and the Lord Mayor's consort will now present the retiring Lady Mayoress with the retiring brooch. Right. I'd now like to invite the retiring Lord Mayor to reply to these wonderful comments that have been made on behalf of himself and the retiring Lady Mayoress. Councillor Harper.
Well, thank you all, and it's very kind of you to say all these lovely words about me. We've had a fantastic year, a year full of amazing events, a year discovering the real Leeds, the people and communities in our city. I just want to share some of the various events we have attended. Some have already been mentioned. We started off quite slow, then the momentum kicked in, and one of the funniest events of the year was standing on stage in Potterdown Park, opening the 49th West Indian Carnival in front of 50,000 people. One of my favourite reggae songs came on, and before long we were both dancing on stage and had a real good laugh. A week later, my good friend Arthur France told me that it had been filmed, and it was all over the press and TV, and I was known in the West Indies as the dancing Lord Mayor. I like to have a dance and a sing-along, and this became more prevalent as the year went on. And Jane, we've got something in common there. We visited our twin town of Zegan, as Bob Gettins explained, with the Mayor. And we also had a good dance in the town square with that guy who used to work for us, John Wilson. And no, we hadn't been drinking. I attended the new trampoline centre in Kirkstall and couldn't resist having a go. And true to form with my accident-prone problems, I fell off with my chains on and hurt my leg. I attended the Chinese New Year celebrations at Leeds Town Hall, and ended up dancing at the front end of a Chinese dragon to the amusement of hundreds of the Chinese community. We attended 13 carol concerts and churches and community centres around the city and ended up singing on stage with around 7 of them. We sang and danced with many of our old friends at the Irish Centre and walked with them on the St Patrick's Day parade. And as Stuart said, I attended the amazing Cosy Care Dementia group, which was made and set up by Peter Smith in Middleton, and we had a group of members led by me marching round the room singing Show Me the Way to Amarillo, Peter Kay style, something I've always wanted to do. I was invited to a post-Christmas party for local pensioners in January, in the middle of January, which was organised by the Rotary Club in Wetherby, where we served, as Alan said, a fantastic Christmas dinner to over 150 pensioners, and it was cooked all by our own Councillor Alan Lamb in his lovely pinny. I finally got to the Queen's Garden Party this time. on the right day and the right time, unlike my previous experience a few years ago. Every Lord Mayor has a visitors book where those who come to see the Lord Mayor can sign their name and make a few comments about their visit. During the year, there was hundreds who have signed the book, many of them children, who I take on a tour of the Civic Hall, talking about the building and my role as the Lord Mayor. Some of the funniest comments I read were from a number of 9-year-old pupils on a school visit. One young girl signed commenting, "The Lord Mayor is so dreamy." Followed by another young boy who said, "I don't like his biscuits." And finally, to bring me back down to earth, one said, "That Lord Mayor never stops talking about himself." One thing, as was stated, I didn't quite manage to get Leeds United back in the Premiership, but there's always next year. I also attended some more sombre events. There are 2 that stick in my mind, and the first was the visit to the Somme to commemorate the 100th anniversary of that horrendous battle in 1916. We laid a wreath at a special monument in a small village called Buzz-le-Toit to remember the Leeds pals. In the village, the night before they were moved to the front, many slept where they could find a comfortable spot, and a number slept at the side of the local church. Some of them inscribed their names and the dates of the battle on the church walls where they slept. I sat on the ground that night reading their names and tried to imagine what was in their thoughts the night before the battle took place. And as we know, around 800 of them were killed on the first day of the battle, with the rest being seriously injured in the days that followed. The whole village and the local farmers turned out that day as I laid the wreath. It was a very sad but proud day, and one which I'll never forget. Another event which took place was in the Ark Royal Room, when I was asked to return a Leeds World War II veteran, Fred Jackson, his medals, which had been stolen from his home in Farnsley. His family and the Royal British Legion contacted the Ministry of Defence to campaign for replacement medals to be made and returned to him. The family brought him to the Ark Royal Room to meet the Lord Mayor and to celebrate his 97th birthday. Little did he know that I had the medals to return to him, and I will always remember the beaming smile on his face when I pinned them on his chest. He then shed a tear, followed by his daughter and family, who were crying with happiness, and then me. I couldn't help it. And I'm still welling up thinking about that day. Unfortunately, he died 6 months later, but at least he passed away with his well-deserved medals. My charity events have been fun, and we raised around £50,000, with more to come, hopefully. And I would like to thank all the members of the Charity Committee and staff from Epilepsy Action and Heart Research for all their support. Raising the money was great fun, but more importantly, we raised awareness of the charities and held events in the Civic Hall, where many people came to learn about how to resuscitate people suffering from a heart attack, and also to help anyone they came across suffering from an epileptic seizure. This education and advice, I hope and pray, will help to save many lives of people in Leeds in the future. My most enjoyable events were people and community events. Meeting ordinary Leeds folk, talking to them, listening to them and having fun with them. The big events and the dinners were enjoyable and important as well, but meeting communities and attending events large and small, and thanking the thousands of volunteers who selflessly give up their time and money to help those less fortunate than themselves was, in my mind, the most enjoyable part of it. To my Lady Mayoress, Lynn Scholes, who's taking a picture of me right now, you've been wonderful, and so many people have said to me how lucky I was to have you with me this year. And I'm so proud of you. You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you, Lee. And as was mentioned before, the last and big event, which was my favourite, was Leeds We Are United. In February, as I was reflecting on the terrible events taking place all over the world, I thought how lucky we were to live in the great city of Leeds. An amazing multicultural city, a really diverse city, where communities all live, work and play together. So I decided to organise this event to celebrate our great city and its diversity. I brought together the performers who were there from all the different communities I had visited in my mayoral year. We had South Asian music, a Chinese dragon, a classical sitar player, we had Irish dancing, Bollywood dancing and a wonderful gospel choir, and a brilliant young opera singer, the granddaughter of Councillor Judith Elliott. We had 250 people at the event, and we also raised around £4,000 for the charity. And what a brilliant event it was. Everyone who attended told me how much they really enjoyed themselves. And as usual, I ended up singing on stage with the gospel choir. The song was One Love by Bob Marley. Let's get together and feel all right. And we did. It was a night to remember. I would also like to thank all the staff in the Lord Mayor's office. We have had such a fun year this year. Ian, Erica, Bernadette, Jill and Andrea. And I know I drove them up the wall sometimes, but they were always there to support me. And I'll miss you all, and thank you. And to Mark Lenton, my sergeant at Mace, stroke driver, stroke bodyguard. Mark took on the role when our John Wilson retired last September, and working in John's shadow all the previous years must have been difficult, because at times, wherever you go, and what happened this year, people always asked, where's John Wilson? They weren't bothered about me, they just wanted to see where John Wilson was. Mark has been really brilliant this year and has really stepped up to the plate, and is now, without any doubt, his own man, and carries out his duties with such professionalism and sheer hard work. So well done, Mark, and can we give him a round of applause? Can I also thank all the previous Lord Mayors who have stood in for me for one reason or another at events I've been unable to attend, especially my good friend, Councillor Jim McKenna, who was always there for me when I needed help. And to our new Lord Mayor, Councillor Jane Dowson, and her consort Alan, you're in for a roller coaster of a year. I've known Jane for many, many years, and I know that she's going to be a fantastic Lord Mayor in Leeds. And finally, thank you to all of my fellow councillors of Leeds City Council for giving me the honour of representing the City of Leeds as its 123rd Lord Mayor. It's a year I'll never forget. Thank you very much.
We're now into the business of the meeting. Minutes of the council meeting held on the 29th of March 2017. Councillor Ogilvie.
I move that the minutes be approved, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Latty.
I second that, Lord Mayor.
And we'll move to the vote. For? Against? Abstentions? That's carried. Item 5, declarations of interest. I'm inviting members to declare any disclosures of pecuniary interest at this point. No declarations. We'll move to item 6. Any announcements? No announcements. Item 7, recommendations of the General Purposes Committee. Councillor Blake.
In terms of the notice.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Second, Lord Mayor.
I'd like to call for the vote on the recommendations of the General Purposes Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Item 8, establishment of committees and appointments. Councillor Ogilvie.
And move in terms of the notice, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Harland.
Second, Lord Mayor.
Right, I'd like to call for the vote to approve Schedules 8A to C and Schedules 8E and 8F, and to give authority for the City Solicitor to change appointments in consultation with the appropriate whips. For? Against? Abstentions? Right, we now move to 8D1, appointment of chairs to community committees. Councillor Ogilvie.
I move in terms of the notice, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Harland.
I second, Lord Mayor.
Right, I'm now going to ask for those members listed to vote in respect of the appointment of the chair of their respective community committees. Are you ready? See if we get this one right. So, we'd like to start with the nomination of Councillor Akhtar to chair the Inner North West Community Committee. So could those members who are allowed to vote, vote for? Against? Abstention? That's carried. Congratulations, Councillor Akhtar. Nomination, Councillor Wadsworth to chair the Outer North West Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Wadsworth. Nomination, Councillor Taylor to chair the Inner North East Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Taylor. Nominations, Councillor Wilkinson to chair the Outer North East Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Wilkinson. Nominations, Councillor Khan to chair the Inner East Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Khan. And nomination, Councillor Harland to chair the Outer East Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Harland. Onward. Nomination, Councillor Gabriel to chair the Inner South Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Gabriel. Councillor Venner, nominated to chair the Inner West Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Venner. And Councillor Coulson to chair the Outer West Community Committee. For? Against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Coulson. Right, we move to 8D1, appointment to Outer South Community Committee. Councillor Ogilvie.
I move in terms of the notice, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Harland.
I second, Lord Mayor.
Right, so I'm going to call for the vote, and it is restricted at this point to members of the Outer South Community Committee in respect of each nomination. So can I call for the votes for Councillor Bruce? And for Councillor Finnegan? Right. 6-5. Right, 6-5. So, Councillor Bruce, congratulations. You are chair of the Outer South Community Committee. Right, we'll move on to item 9, scheme of delegation. Councillor Ogilvie.
Move in terms of the notice, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Harland.
I second, Lord Mayor.
And I'll call for the vote on the officer delegation scheme 4. Against? Abstentions? We'll move to item, and that's carried. Item 10, executive arrangements. Councillor Ogilvie.
Move in terms of the notice.
Councillor Harland.
I second, Lord Mayor.
And I'd now like to call for the vote on executive functions 4. Against? Abstentions? That's carried. And item 11, proposed calendar of council meetings. Councillor Ogilvie.
Move in terms of the notice, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Harland.
I second, Lord Mayor.
And I'd like to call for the vote now to approve the meeting dates for 2017-18 municipal year 4. Against? Abstentions? Right, that's carried. So it just falls on me now to close this part of the meeting and invite you all to join me and Councillor Harper, Lynn and Alan in the banqueting suite. Thank you.